right, episode 37. Well, happy New Year. I mean, 2024 is here. I hope you had an amazing holiday. Personally, mine was great. I got married, so that was awesome. Everything went fine. Wedding was perfect. Bride was perfect. I don't have to say the word fiance anymore, which is perfect. It was great seeing family and friends, but I definitely am very glad that it's over. It was absolutely an exhausting, just holiday season as a whole. I am someone who is just completely introverted in the sense that like socializing just completely drains me. And when you're the guy that like everyone is just coming to see, you need to be on it. You need to have the same level of just excitement and happiness and just be incredibly appreciative throughout the every conversation that you have for days on end. So first it was the rehearsal dinner, which I was out with friends until like 1 a.m. And then it was the wedding day, and that I think we got home at like midnight. But that was just a very long emotional day as well, obviously. And then the following day was New Year's Eve. So then you have to stay out until New Year's Eve and see everyone that's still in town. And it was a lot. And I know it sounds like I am complaining, but it was a very great time. It was an amazing time. I had a lot of fun, which I don't say that often, so that's great. But yeah, I'm glad it's all over. I just want to be home and cook some good food and veg out for the next like foreseeable year. So that's all I'm gonna do. But as I was relaxing and scrolling on Instagram, I came across a creator. Her name is Ginny. I guess she has a podcast called Channel 22. It's not in English, so I haven't listened to it. I obviously don't know what she would be saying. But she does have a series of reels that are pretty interesting, and she calls them fun but deep questions to ask. And I love them. I just like, we're totally captivated by them. So today I'm going to be asking myself a handful of these thought provoking questions, as I'm not yet ready to socialize with anyone for weeks on end. So there's no better time to like take a peek under the hood and discover a little trauma that's been hiding away and bringing that to light. So no, I'm just kidding, but not really. But it's not so bad to like learn a little bit about yourself sometimes. So hopefully this is a good opportunity where you kind of get a peek at how I think it's some fun but deep questions. But here we go. All right, question one. So if someone offered you a box of everything you've ever lost, what's the first thing that you would look for? Well, for me, I'll tell you what, half the box would probably be filled with random just Lego pieces from my childhood that I swore never came with the set. There was always like one or two pieces I could never find and just lost them for good. And there'd be a chunk missing out of my spaceship or race car or whatever it was. But I never just had the patience to look for it, So I was pretty good with a lot of my stuff as a kid, If something ever held value, I really didn't want to lose it. I don't remember or like recall like losing very important things in my life. I've never lost a phone, never lost a computer or anything like that. But yeah, I'm kind of lucky. I mean, I've never really been super attached to anything, which I guess is really nice. And it's kind of funny. I mean, like even this week we were cleaning out a bunch of our closets in our house, and I was just throwing shit out right, left and right. Whereas my now wife, which is great, started getting a little bit sentimental about certain things. And like from her room, she'd ask like, do you want this? And I would just like yell back without even looking, like, throw it out, just throw it out, just get rid of it. I'm not that sentimental, I don't think, about certain things. I'll tell you what though, if I were to get asked this in the future, I know for a fact that I'm losing this wedding ring. I keep like finicking with it, and it's a little loose, so I can like definitely like take it off, but I'm gonna lose this thing for sure. I mean, that would be by far the most expensive thing that I've ever lost, but I don't think it's like that. I think it's expected at some point in your life to lose a ring. You're holding it on for decades, right? So it's okay. But what would I look for if I lost? I mean, virginity, I think, would be a hilarious answer to this question, but no one wants to relive an experience in their lives, so we'll just leave that hidden away in the box. Something recently I've lost in the last 2 years was my Hydro Flask, actually. So this is my new Hydro Flask. But I lost my first Hydro Flask at a convention in Minnesota 2 years ago. I left it at my seat. And then after like 20 minutes, I noticed like I didn't have it. So I rushed back to my spot. It was gone. and I had to get this new water bottle. You know, a water bottle has a lot of nostalgia. I think it's something that I carried around with me for years on end. I had years worth of stickers on it throughout college. It's a very sentimental artifact, I think, because you use it in everyday life. You're carrying it around everywhere you go. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see that fucking thing, dents and all. I want that water bottle back just for the sentimental value that it had. I was actually having a conversation with someone this week, but I feel like it's the same thing with like a coffee mug, right? Like the coffee mug is one of the first things you see every single day. It shows off just a little glimpse of your personality, depending on like what your mug looks like, what your mug says. And, you know, like I've never lost one, but I'd kind of be upset if I lost my like number one go-to coffee mug, you know. Things like this hold a lot of weight to me. So yeah, everyday things if I lost it, that's what I would look for. All right, next question. So if you had all of the time, resources, and land available to build whatever you want, what would you build? So there's two answers to this. First, if it was a real scenario, you know, it'd be impossible for me not to build something that helped humanity or my community or whatever it was, right? Like if you really do have the means to go out there and make a difference, for example, like building a world-class hospital or clinic, right? Like how could you not do that? And in that case, I guess I could help my partner out because she's obviously in the medical field, make her dream hospital. And since I have unlimited resources, I'd hire the best staff and the best doctors to help further her passion, you know? So there you go. And in a way, I'm helping her and thousands of people for years to come. But on a much more selfish level, I've always wanted and dreamed of opening a restaurant. I've only had one job in the food industry throughout my life, but I love the idea of opening a small, just boutique restaurant that serves a curated, tiny little menu. I've got this perfect concept for one, but I just have never brought it to life. You know, I'm too afraid to do that. Sometimes I even see like vacant restaurant spots and I'll like peer through the window just to see what it looks like. And like, I just see so much potential in a restaurant space, and I want to build out the design, the atmosphere, the branding. I just think it'd be a lot more fun. Definitely a lot more fun than building out a hospital, because that sounds very tedious and there'd be a lot of regulations and boring, and the medical field doesn't really capture my attention. But if I had to choose, I guess I would do that. Selfishly, restaurant all the way. Help people both ways, I think. Question 3. If time was frozen for 8 hours right now and you could still move freely around and everyone else couldn't, what would you do? Now, I feel like the obvious answer for this question would be to steal, right? You'd go into a store, steal whatever you want. You know, just hit up an Apple store or something, grab a new MacBook, maybe stop by the Auntie Anne's right next to it, snag a few pretzels. Maybe if there's time, head down to the dispensary, see what's good there, and then just call it a day. But besides the little devil on my shoulder taking everything in sight, the scenario obviously isn't something that I'd ever want to do, I don't think. I mean, it sounds incredibly lonely, and an experience like this I think would really only be good if you shared it with like another person. Otherwise, you'd just be alone for 8 hours straight, and you'd have to figure out what to do. Then on top of everything, like you snap back into reality and you'd have to explain this crazy phenomenon about what you just experienced to someone. And if they don't believe you, you know, you're just screwed. I think you're instantly labeled as a crazy person. So it could go south quickly if you didn't do it with someone else. You know, like just imagine someone's like, hey, time was frozen for me for the last 8 hours and you couldn't move. You'd be like, you're a freak, you know? I wouldn't believe him. So you definitely have to do it with someone else. And when you do, just have it be like a Bonnie and Clyde type of moment for you. So yeah, completely opposite to the last question where I try to help people or help society as a whole. In this scenario, I'm taking everything. I'm taking all of their shit. Being completely selfish is the way to go, I think, in this one, especially if this is like a one-time type of deal. That's just too long of a day, I think. I mean, for everyone else, it's a normal 24-hour day, but for you, it's 32 hours, you know, that you got to have a little fun, I think, along the way with that. So next, is there a moment in your life that changed how you treat people? This is a good one. You know, I'd have to, as this is going to sound horrible, I'd have to say that pledging a fraternity was a big shift for me in my mindset. I know that sounds extremely lame and bro-y, but let me explain. So when I pledged my fraternity, there were a few, let's call them assignments that you had to do like each week, right? So some revolved around like the fraternity's history nationally. Others were specific to traditions that the house formed on campus. But one assignment that really changed my perception of this fraternity was something called interviews. So each week, as a pledge, I think you needed like 5 interviews with active members of the fraternity. So you'd get all their names, their phone numbers, their Facebook profiles, and all the pledges in my class were all fighting for these slots of time because they were like, I mean, all these kids still had class and whatever, like everything else going on in their lives, and they had to make time basically for you. And sometimes you did group interviews, sometimes you did one-on-one interviews. Some interviews had traditions that lasted hours long. Some interviews included like just hanging out and watching football. But you were responsible for asking for these interviews, scheduling these interviews, and then providing a handful of questions throughout the interviews. So your objective was to really just get to know the other guys on a personal level. Now, mind you, at the time, you're pretty intimidated by a lot of these guys, and sitting down with some of them for what could have been like hours on end was just incredibly uncomfortable. But these interviews were super interesting because if you asked the right questions and you were in the right setting, you really got a good opportunity and an inside look at some of these guys' lives and just seeing what they've dealt with. And once you became an active member of the fraternity too, then the next class of guys would be asking you for their interview. But back to the question, is there a moment in your life that changed how you treat people? So interviews helped me realize 2 things. First, I've had an incredibly easy life. Some of these dudes have been through some crazy ass shit, just horrible home lives, horrible family lives, horrible experiences. And second, you have absolutely no clue what people have gone through in order to get to where they are now. You know, you may be in the same place right now, but your paths to get there were extremely different 9 times out of 10. But sitting down and really hearing some of these dudes' stories was pretty crazy. And now you didn't obviously have to like get along with all these guys. There were many, many different personalities within the fraternity, but you always came out of it just with like a level of respect, which I appreciated. Question number 5, what is the kindest thing you've seen someone do? Now, this isn't like a direct answer, I guess, but the nicest gesture I think someone can do is dedicate their time or include someone. Now, money is obviously amazing. You don't have to say that. But the more personalized you can make your experience helping someone, the more impactful it becomes, at least in my eyes. So have you ever come across people in your life that are just naturally so kind? I feel like everyone can pick out like 2 or 3 people in their lives that they've either worked with or went to school with who are just always on it, and they're just so fucking nice. And when you think about it, there was absolutely no incentive for them other than just to be that fucking nice. They just showed up with a smile, and now that I think about it, I mean, you really have just no idea what's going on in their personal lives because they were always just so captivated in the moment that they were consistently just living in, you know, just a state of happiness. Or at least that's just how it appeared to me as I just observed the world from my shit attitude point of view. But I always envied these people, you know, like what fucking Kool-Aid were these people drinking where they just had this happy aura around them, you know, like it was insane to me. And I feel like there were always just these 1 or 2 standout people in my life that were always just so happy. And when I think back to the question, what is the kindest thing you've seen someone do? It makes me think about these few like key individuals that I've met in my life who just consistently showed up happy regardless of the situation, or I guess the person that they were talking to. They just went out each day and tried to spread kindness. And I think that's the best thing you can do, I guess. And like, for example, have you seen the movie Pay It Forward? Fun fact, it was shot at my high school. So check it out. It was great. Right next to my locker. Crazy scene went down. But these like small acts make just such a big difference. And some of the sincerest moments of kindness, I don't think are like hard to find. Like you just give someone your full attention, ask someone how they're doing, hold the door fucking open for someone, follow up every once in a while to see how someone's doing. In my opinion, it's like these tiny little acts of kindness that anyone can do throughout the day, every day, that hold the most weight. Because for me, I think you just don't know what other people are going through. And I don't think you need to know. Like, I don't need to know all your shit sometimes. I just need to make the fucking effort to be a decent human to you. And that can be the highlight to your day. You know, sometimes that's all it really takes. It's just a fucking small act. All right, final question for today. At what age do you think you were the best version of yourself? So for me, easily, without a doubt in my mind, my current age is definitely the best version of myself. I don't think I've ever been happier. And I think a large reason for that is because I've been so focused on self-improvement over the last year. But I came across this quote this week that I'd like to read that emphasizes kind of this dark side of self-improvement that I've been struggling with a little bit. And even though this may be like the best version of myself, there's still a long way to go, which I think is exciting and in one regard because I have the bandwidth and the patience to really recognize that. But that being said, here's the quote. Here's the dark truth about self-improvement that nobody talks about. You may become the best version of yourself, but as soon as you learn about what you should be doing, for example, I should be reading, I should be working out, I should be getting up early, it creates this mental checklist that if we don't do everything on that list, you use it as ammunition that you then use against yourself. And that's because the truth is that self-improvement alone doesn't satisfy us. Self-improvement is only one part of the journey. The other half that is vital for growth is self-acceptance, accepting where you are right now, accepting every small and big win, learning from our losses, and enjoying the now.